We were all on the tour bus and we all heard it for the first time on the tour bus. And it was just like, wow, we were going crazy.
Was there a point after you signed with RCA that Paul Stanley calls you about Kiss?
It was on the day that we signed. It was more like we're just messing around, but it got a bit more serious when we got the chance to, tour with Van Halen. I did get involved with heroin. You're off the tour if I see your right hand on the neck one time. He's such a great guy. God, it's just, cocaine got the best of him. And that's so unfortunate. This is after the Motley Crue tour too. And so we asked Ozzy and we asked Vince to come down. They both gladly, they wanted to be a part of it. Kenny was always so high though. He was on meth and heroin. You don't know what to believe. And whenever they heard the name Steve Lynch, they went, goes right in the garbage. Because any person that has anything to do with the 80s, no, we're out. We're out completely. Go to Dr. Sandborg, my hand specialist, and he said, yeah, you really screwed up. You really screwed up. He says you might not be playing again. He committed suicide because he couldn't play music anymore. What happened was, it's public knowledge, but they sued me for the name, that there cannot be a band called Autograph with no original members. It was literally the end of the 80s. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Los Angeles, California, Autograph. Just to be expecting more music from me. Yeah.
The hair metal guru from Warren to Crew. The hair metal guru. Never forget Charlie too.
Hey, it is an honor to welcome Steve Lynch to the show. Steve is the founder and guitarist of the band Autograph, the author of, hopefully I get this right, 4 books, I think, including the brand new Confessions of a Rock Guitarist, which came out in May. He's an entrepreneur and just put out 2 fantastic albums on FNA Records. With that, Steve Lynch, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, those first 3 books I was going to mention, those are instructional books, the Right Touch, books 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, and then the last one, of course, Confessions of a Rock Guitarist. That's not instructional.
Exactly. And I want to say this about Confessions of a Rock Guitarist. So I just got the digital version of the book. And Saturday night I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start checking this out and see what's in it. Next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. Then I get up in the morning on Sunday, and I never do this, but I'm like, I got up early, and I'm like, I gotta keep going with that book. I finished it Sunday afternoon. I promise. I'm not saying that. It was phenomenal. Like I could not put it down.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for that. It seems to be getting, pretty good reviews across the board. Yeah. It's just, I think it's the way that I told it. It's like a story, a life story, with all these different things that I've gone through, the tragic times and along with the triumphant times. So, it's one of those things.
Yeah. And there were just so many, I didn't know a lot of the history of what happened with Autograph. I mean, I was an Autograph fan, but you never got those behind the scenes details of what happened with you guys.
Right. Yeah.
And there were some shocking things about things that happened in your youth before you were an Autograph. So and so I'm hoping that we can get into some of that. But
absolutely,
I highly recommend that you go check out Confessions of a Rock Guitarist. I'll have the purchase link in the description. So we're going to talk about that. But what made now the right time? How did you end up getting hooked up with Doc from FNA to put out these Autograph releases?
Well, he contacted me about it, and of course, I was in the middle of this whole thing with Sony Records, so I couldn't really do anything. But now that's pretty much we're getting the masters back, basically, So now that that's pretty much out of the way, I can go ahead and release them, and I was glad to do it. They did a great job on the mastering and everything, and it sounds phenomenal. So
it does not sound like demo quality.
It was, but like I said, the mastering that they did on it, so that made a huge difference, and so it's like. When I listen to them, I don't remember some of these at all, But we were always in the studio, so of course you're gonna forget about some of the things you record. So
And the version of Turn Up the Radio on here, it's called Turn Up the Tape Machine.
Yeah, that's what it originally was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so luckily we changed it because we thought, wait a minute, tapes aren't going to be around forever, because CDs were just coming out at that time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but we went into the studio and recorded it that way. We went in with Andy Johns, who passed away a few years ago, brother of Glenn Johns. They've worked with, the Beatles, they've worked with Led Zeppelin, they've worked with the Stones, everybody. They're all two British lads is what they are. And they did a phenomenal job, with everything that they did. So.
Right.
And they did a phenomenal job on, Andy produced our third album, and he did a great job on the demo that we originally cut that David Lee Roth heard. David Lee Roth was him and Kenny, our drummer, they were jogging partners. So they would meet up at 8:30 every morning, go jogging up, Sunset Boulevard. Now you think that with David, he would be noticed, but no, he had a hood on, and he was all into it, man. He was a total workout freak. So
yeah. So I want to get into those CDs and so much more are available at FNArecords.net.
Yeah.
So you need to, I've been listening to them since I got the CDs just a few days ago. It's phenomenal quality.
Absolutely.
Booklet. I mean, it's awesome. So,
yeah, it's really cool. And it's like one of those things where I'm going to be listening to it again and again. It's just a lot of fun. That's what it is. It's a lot of fun for me too, to, not only for the audience, but for me too, to listen back to those things again.
Yeah. So. They're great releases. You will not regret it. I'm going to bring this up. I live in North Dakota. I have my radio show out of Houston, Texas, but I'm in Fargo, North Dakota. You were born in Williston, North Dakota.
Yeah. Williston, North Dakota. Yeah, that's right. But, it was about a year when we moved to the Seattle there. A year old when we moved to the Seattle area, because of course in Williston, it's a small town. There's not much work there.
Yeah.
And they had, Seattle was growing phenomenally back at that time. So.
But anybody who's from North Dakota just knows that it's so small that when you hear somebody else from North Dakota, like it's kind of like a deal. So all the North Dakota people.
The population there with Fargo and everything it's probably only about maybe 600,000 or 700,000.
Exactly.
I know Wyoming is only like 475, and that's the least populated state.
Have you ever played North Dakota since like with Autograph? Did you guys ever play?
We did. We played Bismarck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we never played anywhere else. It was just Bismarck, because that's the main town anyway.
Yeah.
So
so what was the first music that grabbed you, like that made you go, you know what? Like this music thing, that's gonna be my gig.
Well, it was the Beatles, first off, I mean, I heard them and I heard the way the girls were going crazy and everything. And I thought, wow, what else would I want to do, right? But anyway, my sister got the Meet the Beatles album, and she played it for all her girlfriends. And I just thought, it's a really cool thing. And I thought, the Fab Four were just amazing on stage and everything. And just to watch them perform, it got my adrenaline going, and that's what I want to do. And I was only 9 years old in 1964 when they played on the Ed Sullivan Show. Right. But I just decided at that time, but I was still young. My dad got me an acoustic, but the strings were like that high off the neck, You'd have to stand on the neck to make a chord, you know what I mean? It was like ridiculous, especially for a 9-year-old. And so then I heard Hendrix, of course, a few years later when Are You Experienced came out, and I heard Purple Haze and all these fantastic songs. And that's like, that completely changed me. I just went, that's what I want to do. I was playing bass at the time because in 1968, there was a friend down the block who already played the guitar. So I started out, playing the bass, and then I switched over to guitar September 18th, 1970, when Jimi Hendrix died.
The day Hendrix died.
And I've never been the same.
You mentioned this friend, and I don't know if you want to tell this, but
sure.
The most heartbreaking stories was the story of your friend Jerry that you were playing music with.
Yeah.
What happened to him? I was just floored when you told the story. Like what happened with him?
Well, it's like one of those things where we got in some trouble with his parents. I was living in Marysville at that time, which is way north of Seattle, and then he was living back down in the south end in Des Moines, Washington. And so anyway, so he would come up to my place on one weekend. I'd go back down to his place on another weekend. This is after my dad got a different job, and so we had to move away, but we still made sure to stay in contact. And the stuff that we had written together and everything, it was just like such a fun time. His name was Jerry Hendricks.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Jerry Hendricks, Jimi Hendrix,
Right.
so, but yeah, and we just had a gas playing music together, and so anyway, when we got in trouble with his parents, they were really, really strict Christians, and so they said, Ix with the music, Ix with you were taking your guitar, your amp away, your records, your record player, everything. Music is over for you. And I went, wow, how drastic is that? But they were real hardcore, Christians. So they just thought it was evil anyway, So anyway, that happened, and then we didn't see each other for a while. I was devastated because of the fact that we were going to be the next Beatles, of course, just like everybody else.
Right.
And so then I found out that he died. We had a tree camp that we built, it was like 3 stories up, and it was high up in these big pine trees. And so we had a rope swing that went down over the ravine from the deck of the tree camp, and we put a loop in the bottom of it. It was my idea to put a loop in the bottom of it and stick our foot in, because you're with the wet Seattle weather up there, your hands would start slipping when you're going over this, and it was a 200-foot drop, so not a good idea. So we tied that loop so that we could swing out there, with our foot in that, so take the weight off. And then after we had done that, I went back up to Marysville, north of Seattle, where I was living, and my dad told me, when he got home from work, he says, I got some bad news for you, and he said that your friend Jerry's died. He's passed away,
Yeah.
And so, of course, the police, showed up and everything, to my place and explained what happened. And it didn't take me till, a few years later that I realized that his foot didn't slip out of that loop and have his neck caught in it, because it just wasn't that big. You know what I mean? The odds of that happening are just...
They tried to tell you it was an accident, right?
Right, absolutely.
Right.
But, years later, I kept on thinking about it, and it just really perplexed me because of the fact that loop was just, big enough to hold your foot. Yeah. And so I went, wait a minute, this didn't happen. You'd have to really wrangle with it to get, your neck in it. But I realized he committed suicide because he couldn't play music anymore.
Wow.
And when I came to that realization, that was a real shocker for me, because I went, my God, that's how much he loved it. So
yeah, that was, when I was reading that, it was almost like I could almost get emotional, like hearing when you came to that realization, no, this was not an accident.
Right. This was not an accident. He did this purposely because he lived for guitar and to sing. That's all he wanted to do. So.
And in your book, you kind of got into there was some pretty heavy drug use when you were a teenager.
Yeah, I kind of got all that out of the way.
Yeah.
Because you got to think it was like the later '60s. Yeah. Everybody was doing. Not cocaine or heroin at that time. You very rarely heard of that, but I did get involved with heroin.
Yeah.
And I did get involved, but that was only for a 4-month period, and I got addicted, but then I was only 15 years old. I had my friend take me up to his parents' cabin, and I got sober up there, and it was not a pleasant thing. We put a plastic shower curtain underneath me on the mattress, and I just went for it, the throwing up and everything, and he thought I was going to die, and you're not supposed to go cold turkey like that. But I was so desperate to get off of it that I did. Never tried it again. Never wanted to try it again. That was it. Because once you go through withdrawals, that's a one-time game.
That's pretty self-aware at 15. To be
yeah, well, you know, it's just one of those points where you reach in your life and you just go, this isn't what I want to do. You know, I want to play guitar. This isn't my life, you know. And of course I experimented with LSD. Everybody was popping LSD. Yeah. Everybody at the school and everything, you know. It was like 1968, 69, around that time. Yeah. You know, so that was when I was 13, 14 years old. You know, I got that out of the way, you know, and then I got in some trouble, and I learned that I spent, a little bit of time in a juvenile facility, and I thought, okay, this isn't where I want to be either, you know, because everybody wanted to beat up on me, so because I was the small guy.
Right. So when did you start getting into bands? Like when did you say, okay, I'm going to get together with some guys, we're going to go out and play some shows?
When I was 15 is when I started with the jam bands, but it was we just played parties and stuff like that. Sure. You know, I was in one called Yellow Dog after the comic book Yellow Dog and all that.
Right.
And so, but the first professional band that I played in was a group called Outlawed, and that's when I was 18, because then I could actually go out and play. Yeah. You know, you weren't allowed. If you were under 18, you couldn't play.
Yeah.
You know, and so so I started doing that, and we were constantly busy, you know, and then went into a group called the Ross Taylor Band, like I mentioned in the book. And then it went into a group called Silverwood, which we got pretty popular around the Seattle, Tacoma area up there. You know, we were constantly playing too. We were playing it, as I mentioned in the book, in Montana and Idaho and down into Oregon and Vancouver, BC and everything. So we were kind of all over the place. Yeah.
And the book goes into a lot of detail about those early bands, which was fascinating. But it seemed like you hear about this place called the Guitar Institute of Technology.
Yeah.
Was a big turning point for you. Like, how did that come about?
That completely changed my life. Because, you know, the last gig, you know, because there was just no money in doing it. We all lived in a band house in Seattle. But there was really no money. I mean, it was really tough to, you know, keep a car even, you know what I mean? Because if you had repairs, you were SOL, you know, but so I was like looking at possibly still playing guitar, but doing something different, or getting a regular job and playing guitar on the side. But, you know, that doesn't really work out, you know, and I called back to Seattle at that last show, and it was Missoula, Montana. And I got a hold of my teacher there, Don Mock, who just passed away. And amazing jazz fusion player. Oh my God. People just don't know what good is until they hear one of those guys. You know what I mean? And they're not well known publicly, but, you know, they have their own circle of people. So anyway, so I called up the West Seattle Music, and he wasn't there anymore. They said, oh, he's at some new guitar school down in LA. I went, guitar school? Are you kidding me? And so I actually got the number, I think it was 212-463-1248.
Do you remember the number?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's the same number, but anymore. Right. But anyway, so I called up down there, and I called for new listings because it was, you know, back then when they had, you know, information that you call up and get a number. Right. And so I called up and I said, is this the Guitar Institute? You know, and it was Lady Becky, really nice lady. She was running the front desk there, and she was part owner of it too, her husband, Pat. And so anyway, I said, is Don Mock there? And she says, yeah, let me see if he's out of class, you know. And so she got him, and he was out of class. And I said, Don, it's Steve Lynch from Seattle. He goes, oh my God, Steve, quit your band, sell your equipment, and get your ass down here.
Right.
3 months later, I was there. I did everything, you know, everything he asked. And I went in, and he said, don't worry about doing the exam to get into the school. You've been taking lessons from me, so you don't need to do that. Okay. And so I just got right in, you know, and but man, I would play, you know, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it really took a toll on my hands, believe me. But it was like probably one of the best years of my life, because I really learned what discipline meant. I mean, I'd always practice a lot, but then it's a whole different breed. Down in LA, you're at the best in the world. You know what I mean? I mean, there's absolutely, it's a whole different level. I mean, it's way up there. I was in the 5th grade and I was going into being, college graduate.
Right.
So, and the people that I met while I was going through the classes and, at the school and the staff members and everything, it was just amazing. I started in March of 1978 and it was probably the best decision I ever made in my life,
Sure.
And after that, I started getting studio work in LA and everything. And, because I knew all the tricks, you learn so many things there. But, I'd recorded previously in Seattle too, but I was getting a lot of studio work down there.
Was it in this time? How did you end up writing a book, The Right Touch? Like the first book?
That was when I was going to the Guitar Institute. There was a guy, Emmett Chapman, who invented the instrument, the stick, where you play 5 strings that are the bass strings, and then 5 strings, which are, you play the melody and you solo on and everything. You can play different chord inversions with each hand. I was fascinated by this. Now, I had been playing around with this technique, for since like 1975, around in there, but just using like 1 or 2 fingers, and there was a guy, Steve Buffington, up in Seattle, who was really good at it, and Harvey Mandel, he was another artist that was experimenting with it and everything. But then when I saw Emmett Chapman do that, I just went, oh my God, the sounds that were coming out of this instrument. I almost wanted to switch over to the stick, but I've been playing guitars professionally for 5 years at that point, and been playing for 8 years. So I decided, I'm going to stick with guitar. But I asked him after the clinic, and I said, you said that during the clinic that you got to a point where you need to make an instrument, that would accompany both hands like that. And so I said, what were you doing? I handed him my guitar and I said, what were you doing on guitar? And he says, well, look, you got one position of the pentatonic here. Here's a simple idea. And then you've got another position here. And he just went, and I went, I get it. I know exactly what he's doing. And so I incorporated all 4 fingers on both hands. And then I started writing everything out so I'd remember it. I wasn't necessarily writing a book, but I just wanted to memorize all of it somehow. And I was coming up with so much. It's the only thing I was doing there at the school. I was skipping classes so I could go back and practice that stuff. Right. But it worked out. I got the student of the year, or the most likely to succeed award. That's what it was. Yeah. And so,
how does you putting all that together end up like, hey, somebody says, let's publish this? And
yeah, it was actually, Howard Roberts and Tommy Tedesco. Tommy Tedesco is a legend among studio musicians. He played on all the, like the Jetsons and Beverly Hillbillies and all that, all the 50s, 60s, and 70s stuff. That's all Tommy Tedesco played on, most all of it, him and Carol Kane, the bass player and everything. And then it was Howard Roberts who wrote the curriculum for the school, for almost the whole curriculum. There was other teachers that added a bit in, but that was mostly all Howard Roberts. He had a really unique way of teaching, which made total sense, and I got to know Howard too. And he's just, oh my God, what an incredible mind. He's way out there. He was into like learning all these, about all these different, philosophies and, really, really deep thinking stuff. And he turned me on to a lot of it. And I still have those books back here, And so, anyway, but they said after I played at the graduation ceremony, they said, hey, would you like to write a book on that? And I kind of laughed and I said, I have enough for 3 books right now. And so I spent the next couple of months putting it together in order. And, it was a lot of work, but it was well worth it, because I came up with the first book, and then of course I had the other material already written. So I was just going to see how the first book did, and the first book did really well. So it was with Dale Zdenek, that's who I signed with publishing, and then it went to Bellman Mills, and then it went to Warner Brothers, and now it's just belongs to me.
and you put out 2 other editions of The Right Touch, or 2?
Yeah, book 2 and book 3. Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they were just an extension of it. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't fit all of it. I could easily write another 3 books right now.
Right.
You know, but I figure nobody's probably going to get that far into it.
Right. Right.
So
after Guitar Institute of Technology and Right Touch, what are you doing in those couple of years before? I'm assuming studio work, but before you get together with the guys in Autograph.
Well, what I was doing was, like I said, I was doing the studio work, and then I played with David Arkenstone. He's like famous for doing all the keyboard parts for. He still does it. He still does all these, like for the Discovery Channel. He's actually signed with them, so he does all that stuff that you hear on all these programs. That's him playing with it, you know. So yeah, David Arkenstone, and then I played with a band called Looker, and that was with the singer Steve Plunkett, and I had played with a group called The Word. And that was a great band too. That was up in actually Woodland Hills, out if you know California at all, you know, down in the LA area. Yeah, Woodland Hills is kind of out there, and so, but yeah, it was. They were a really good band. They had some really good originals. And then I played in a group.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you guys record anything?
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah, we recorded enough for an album. I got to find those tapes, you know. I'm not really in touch with anybody.
Sure.
I did hear them. I remember they gave me a copy of it when we were done recording, and I went, God, this is actually really good. You know, it sounds great. And then I was also in a band called, well, I had my fusion band right after the Guitar Institute. That was just called myself, basically. And played with some great players in that. But you know, there weren't any places where you could really play. There's like a couple of places, but they're more traditional jazz, like $2 bills and and you know, a couple other ones, and that was it. You know, but like I said, they wanted the typical jazz stuff, so we weren't really that. We were more heavier.
And then when you and the guys in Autograph start messing around, weren't you and Steve Isham playing in a Holly Penfield?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were doing some recording with her. That was on Dreamland Records. You know, and it was like we weren't really heavily invested in it, you know, because it was mainly her and her boyfriend at the time, Gene Barkin, and so it was more like their kind of thing, you know. But we played with them, we recorded with them and stuff. So yeah, that's another one, you know. So I was quite busy in between, you know, after the Guitar Institute, right up until Autograph, I was busy, and then it just got busier from there. Because like I said, you know, David Lee Roth heard the demo tape, you know, because Keni played it for him, and after that, he said, "Man, you guys got to come out on the road with us, you know, and open up." Because you see, Van Halen used to open up for Wolfgang, which was the band that Steve Plunkett and Randy were in.
Okay.
Yeah, and Randy, the bass player. And so when David Lee Roth heard that those two guys were in, he goes, "Oh my God, I'd love to switch things around and have you guys open up for us for a change."
How did you and the Autograph guys, how did you get together and decide, hey, we're going to record some demos that end up being what David Lee Roth hears?
Right. Well, we were in rehearsal at this place called Victory Studios in North Hollywood, and Steve Plunkett owned the PA that he let them use parts of the PA or whatever, so they let us rehearse that for free, and so we just started jamming out some songs. You know, we'd play AC/DC, we'd play, you know, Journey, whatever we wanted to play. You know what I mean? It was just kind of a fun thing to get together and drink beer. Because we all knew each other from playing in different incarnations of bands together. And so, you know, and then we started writing the songs, you know, just, hey, we got something clicking here. This is pretty good, you know. And so that's when Andy Johns.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's okay. That's when Andy Johns came down and heard us and went, we got to go into the studio, have free time at Gower Studios in Hollywood, you know, next weekend. Let's do it. So we did.
When you guys first were doing that, were you thinking, hey, this is going to be a new band, or was it just, hey, we're just messing around?
It was more like we're just messing around, but it got a bit more serious when we got the chance to, tour with Van Halen, of course, and that's what led to the record deal, because all these companies, different labels were offering us, deals with them. The RCA came back and said, we'll give you 100% of the publishing. Hell yeah. Which is unheard of. They don't do that. It's always 50%. But, during that time, we were all older than the other 80s bands. We were like 8, 9, 10 years older. You know what I mean? Than like the guys in Warrant or any of the guys, from back then. And so it was like I'm was one of the youngest in the band, and I'm 70 now.
Yeah.
So it's like, Steve Plunkett, I think he's 73 or 74.
You don't look 70.
Well, thank you. And I eat a lot of foods with preservatives.
Right.
Not really. But,
well, I was gonna ask this. The demo that you did with Andy Johns, that end up getting you hooked up with David Lee Roth. Are some of those songs actually on these FNA?
Yeah, releases? I think most all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so Andy Johns produces this 5-song demo. Keni Richards is out jogging with David Lee Roth, and what leads to, because you guys, you only had this demo. You hadn't played any
We didn't
show.
have a name, because we were just guys that got together and jammed. But we all knew each other, like I said, for playing in different incarnations, so we all knew each other, so it was cool, but Randy was playing with Lita Ford. The drummer Kenny was in a group called The Coup on A&M Records. And then Steve Plunkett was in a group called Silver Condor with Earl Slick. And that was on Columbia Records. And then me and Steve Isham were doing some stuff with Holly Penfield and other things as well. So, but we decided, we were pretty much done with whatever we needed to do with them. I mean, as far as recording or anything. So we thought, well, let's go out and see how this does. But I have to remind you that, like I said, we were a little bit older. So we knew that, it's just like, why not take a chance, because at that point, we were all in our, I was actually 29 when we got the Van Halen tour. In fact, the first day that we played with them, January 18th, 1984, that was my birthday. So here's my birthday. We're opening for Van Halen, which was pretty cool. And I turned 29. And like I said, the other guys, they were already in their 30s. So
you guys were all kind of already professionals in doing.
Oh God, yeah. We had already played on many different records and everything. Right. So and done a lot of demo work and all that. So we were old hats at it, so.
Was that first show with Van Halen, though? That was your first show, right? I mean, you hadn't been out playing before.
That was Autograph's first show. No, we didn't have any clubs or anything. It was out on the big stage, and as soon as the lights go off, and then you hear this roar, and then you walk out on stage, and they have the flashlights leading you up the stairs and everything up onto the stage. And then, the MC comes out and, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from Los Angeles, California, Autograph. And then we just go into a barrage of, just going crazy for about, a full minute. And then we just started into one of our heaviest songs, Deep End. And that was it, So
I know you've been playing shows before that, but were you nervous? I mean, that's 18,000 people probably.
Yeah, I think it was 18,500 people or 18,000. Yeah, it was around there. I was nervous actually, but once you're out there and you're doing it, that's the thing is we had all played so much, professionally. We played some, pretty good sized venues before, nothing like 18,000 seater now, of course. But, once we got through the first song, everybody was pretty relaxed and we were kicking it,
In the book, you tell it's a fascinating story because your book, The Right Touches, about the 2-hand tapping and stuff like that. And obviously, Eddie Van Halen is known for that too. It's not like a trademark, but apparently you kind of got into a little bit of a deal in the Van Halen tour with one of their managers. What Can you tell us?
Well, what happened was their tour manager came up and he was pretty aggressive with me. He said, "You're Steve Lynch, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, you're the one that wrote the book, that The Right Touch, and the two-handed tapping thing." And
Yeah.
back then he actually said hammer-ons, because that's what I was calling it too, hammer-ons, before the word tapping came along. And so I said, "Yeah, but that's what I do. I've been doing it for years. I've been basically playing it since 1975. He goes, "Well, you don't do that here. That's Eddie's thing." So I knew that it was coming from Eddie. You know what I mean? And that upset me, because I would think, if somebody was more advanced or whatever, I'm not saying that I am, but if somebody was a good player with that kind of style, or whatever style, and then I'd say, "Yeah, go for it. I want to listen to your stuff,
Yeah.
And no, he said, "No, you're off the tour if I see your right hand on the neck one time." And so later on, I had a little chat with Eddie when both of us had been drinking some Jack Daniels, and I showed him my book, and I said, you can't be doing this. He goes, "What are you talking about?" And I could tell he knew, but what are you going to do? But he said, because I said, when I'm doing interviews, this is not going to be a good look for you, because I'm going to spill the beans on this, He said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. He said, "Go ahead and do whatever you want." And so from that point on, I just played my two-handed technique, but they cut me out of the mains. You could only hear me coming out of the,
really?
My guitar amp. Yeah. They cut me out of the mains. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm going, okay, let's just get through the tour. I mean, I loved playing with the guys. I mean,
sure.
It was really great. And Eddie was kind of cool at the very end there, but we got pulled off the tour by RCA. They said, "Well, you're not promoting a product. You need to come back in and record back to LA." So we did.
This is kind of off topic, but Van Halen would go on to break up the next year. Like, did you notice any issues?
Oh God, they didn't get along.
Okay.
Put it this way: Michael Anthony would walk off the stage with his Jack Daniels bass still on and a bottle of Jack Daniels, and he wouldn't even go to their dressing room. He would come over to ours, and sometimes he would ride on our tour bus because it was more fun,
right.
And so we thought it was great. We loved having him. I mean, Michael Anthony, still to this day, he's just the coolest guy, and so yeah, there was no problem there. He loved hanging out with us. In fact, he came in and sang on a couple of songs off our second album, That's the Stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, Blondes and Black Cars, That's the Stuff, and there was another one he sang on too. So.
So you get, obviously while you're on tour with Van Halen, there's going to be some label interest. You end up signing with RCA, and they want to get you into the studio to get some product out there.
Right.
So you end up going in to record "Sign In Please" with Neil.
Yeah.
Like, what was that experience like?
Oh, it was great. It was so incredible working with Neil. He fit in, just like, it almost felt like Neil was a part of the band, because all of our ideas just gelled, and he had these incredible different things that he had put in, just like experimenting with a pack of empty Marlboros taped to the snare. And then he'd have a little piezo mic right on that, and then he hit the snare. And then we also tried these gunshot samples and put them onto, and that's what you hear when you hear that breakdown part in the middle of Turn Up the Radio, where it goes, turn up, wham.
Yeah.
That is only a little bit of snare. It's all gunshots.
No shit.
Yeah, because we went into the back of the studio and at the record plant, and we put up these cement bags, and we put microphones all over the place, and it was just an empty storage room basically, and we were shooting guns into the cement bags while it was recording. Neil Kernan was in the studio recording it, and so when you hear that, that's actually gunshots that you're hearing. Yeah,
and he had worked with like Elton John and Queen.
Oh yeah, Queensryche. Yeah. Oh God, so many.
Dawkins, I think he did some stuff with.
Yeah.
Bowie. Anyway, the guy did.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. No, his name's been all over the map, but well deserved too.
Was there a point after you signed with RCA that Paul Stanley calls you about Kiss?
It was on the day that we signed. Paul Atkinson from RCA, the vice president, we signed with him that afternoon.
Okay.
And then we went to the Rainbow, the world famous Rainbow, and we partied it up. And I took a cab home, and I got a phone call at like 1 a.m. And he said, "Is this Steve Lynch?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And he said, "Well, this is Paul Stanley from Kiss." And I went, "Yeah, right." And I hung up. So yeah. I thought it was hilarious. Looking back on it, it's really hilarious. But then he said, "No, this really is Paul Stanley. I got your number from Mike Varney from Guitar Player Magazine." I went, "Oh, okay." And he said, "Yeah, I've heard your demo, and we want you to come in and we want you to, basically try out for the band. But we've already seen your look. We already know what you sound like and everything. So, right. It was basically a done deal." But right. The thing is that I wanted to be in on the concept of a new creation.
Right.
I didn't want to join an established band, and that's why I still wouldn't do that. It's like, basically, I want to be in it, from the very beginning. Right. I don't want to come in and play somebody else's guitar parts. I'm just not interested in that at all. Right. So I made the right decision, and when I saw him again, it was. I said, "Hey, thank you so much for the offer." Because we saw each other at the Roxy when we did a children's benefit for Find the Children. You remember those old milk cartons? Yeah. Where they had a picture of a kid, and find the children and all that. Yep. So we did a benefit for that, and God, all these guys from Rat, from Kiss, Motley Crue. I mean, Bon Jovi. It was like on and on and on. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. Yeah. Which is kind of a really cool thing about LA and just in musicians in general. And they get a chance to be, even if it's on their own expense, they want to come out and they want to be a part of these benefits. So there's a real big heart in there, of wanting to do that, and it's been like that basically since the 60s, where they really want to do, for a worthy cause. They want to come in and contribute to it. So I think that's really cool. Very big hearted.
And I think a lot of the rock bands, the metal bands, they kind of got a bad rap as, they don't care about anything. They're just, but like they're all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But these, guys were constantly giving their time and doing benefits like that. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a pretty, and you have rap artists that do the same thing, so it's like everybody's kind of in the fold, with that, it's, as far as I know, there's a few artists that don't want to have anything to do with it. That's their decision. So
it's ironic that we talk about Paul Stanley calling you about the Kiss gig, because I just got a stack of Hit Parader magazines on eBay. And here is one with Paul Stanley on the cover, 1985, and the ad on the back is autographed.
What a trip!
That's the stuff. And then another one that I got has Nikki Sixx and Robin Crosby, and the ad on the back is please. Anyway, I
don't have those, damn it.
And I actually, if you'll see around, I frame all this stuff. I'm going to frame these 2 autograph ads because they're epic. Anyway.
Yeah, we were in all the magazines that were popular at that time, and it kind of hit all of us because we were older. We were kind of shocked by the whole thing. We didn't know that it was going to go that far, but it was. We were very, very happy that it did, but we always thought that, when you're 30s, it's pretty much over with. You know what I mean?
Right. So in the book, you talked about that. I mean, looking back, it seems obvious that "Turn Up the Radio" is an obvious first single. It's maybe the greatest single ever. But is it true that the record label wanted a different song to be the first?
They wanted "Send Her to Me." They thought it was a stronger song, and we said no, "Turn Up the Radio." And then we came up with this concept, like, what about doing station IDs? And we did all the W's and all the K's on the West Coast. And we went in 2 days, you know, we went in for like 8 hours a day on a Saturday and a Sunday. And we recorded, you know, turn up the radio, KYZO, you know what I mean? And we did it with all the P1s and the P2 stations. So we were all very hoarse after doing that, you know, but we did it in unison and we had different ones that we used. And the radio stations absolutely loved it. Because we sent those out with the single, man.
I remember the rock station in Fargo, North Dakota. I mean, that song was everywhere. You couldn't, and every radio station, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, hey, turn up the radio with autograph. You know, I mean, it was
right.
And
you know what's weird too, Anthony, is that I make more now from it than I did back then because it's all digital.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All the collections are digital, all the jukeboxes are digital and everything. You know, before they would have to go in and count how many times the song was played off of a jukebox down in Argentina. You know what I mean? And so now there isn't any of those people, the reps from the company, that are off doing that. You know, they don't have to anymore because it's all digitized.
Right.
So.
Right. Do you remember when you realized that Turn Up the Radio was becoming massive? Like, holy crap, that thing is all over the place.
Yeah. It was the first time, you know, when we went out, I think it was Aerosmith was the first one after Van Halen, after, you know, the record came out. And I think it was Aerosmith. And we were all on the tour bus and we all heard it for the first time on the tour bus. Yeah. And it was just like, wow, we were going crazy, you know? Yeah. And we heard it just as we were leaving LA, you know, so we're driving out of LA and it comes on the radio. And so that was really cool. And that reminds me of another story. We were on the tour bus too when Keni looked out the window and saw these, because these girls were in a convertible, 2 blondes in a convertible in a black car. Right. And so look at these 2 beautiful blondes in a black car. And everybody went, that's a song. Blondes in Black Cars. Right. And so, yeah, it was on the tour bus too, where that whole idea came about. So
I bet you guys partied hard that night when you heard it on the radio for the first time.
Oh God, yeah. We were called the Party Ninjas back then. But then after the Motley Crue tour, I called it quits. You know, no more. I was done.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and speaking of calling it quits, you guys get the Aerosmith tour. Wasn't Aerosmith like newly sober?
Oh yeah.
With you guys?
In fact, we had to stay in, you know, different sides of the city because they didn't want us. They said no cocaine, well, and no alcohol, nothing. Not even on your tour bus when you're at the venue, because they will come on and try to get some from you. And I even said in my book that the first thing Joe said, hey Steve, you got a bump? You know, I go, no, you know, first of all, we get fired. And the second of all, you know, I don't want to be responsible for you, you know, falling off the wagon, you know, so.
Right. So you have a massive hit with Turn Up the Radio. You get the Aerosmith tour. When you're going in to record, that's the stuff I would think you guys got to be like, hey, we have all the momentum.
Yeah, we did actually. But, you know, we had to write, that's the stuff, all of it, while we were touring.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And then we had to go in and record it. And so we didn't have any time. We were flying back in the town to do like American Bandstand and Solid Gold and to record some songs for movies. You know, we ended up doing about 5 movies back then. And then, you know, of course, there's a lot more now. There's, you know, it's in video games and everything. So, you know, that's the thing is that, you know, with the way that they track payments on these now, it's so much better, you know, than it was back then. So,
you got videos for Blondes in Black Cars, which that's
right.
Stuff. I don't know about you, but ballads were becoming the thing. I thought Changing Hands.
Oh my God, that's one of my favorite songs. I'm so surprised you bring that up.
Oh my!
Because the chorus on that's a $1 million chorus. I mean, that's really profound. I mean, I hear that song and it's fixed in my head for like 2 or 3 days. You know, I can't get rid of it. You know, it's because it's really, really well done.
Was there any like I assume when the record comes out, you're like, okay, here's what's going to be the video, here's going to be the promotion plan. Was there any?
Okay, well, this is what happened, Anthony. Is that Bob Summers died. He was the one that was running RCA.
Okay.
Back in New York. Okay, and then Bob Buziak came in to replace him. Okay, and he was also based out of New York, and so there was a lot of bands at that time that didn't get the push. Like, remember Mr. Mister?
Yeah.
Okay, I know Steve First, the guitar player.
Yeah.
You know, and we would meet each other down at this Mexican restaurant, you know, that we'd always run into each other down there. And we'd both be bitching about RCA. And then it was also Keni Richards, it was the Pointer Sisters, and it was the Eurythmics. They all took a hard hit because RCA was going through this transition. So all the albums that came out that year, they were all suffering, you know, because they weren't getting the push that they deserved. Right. So that just happens. And there's nothing that you can really do about it.
I just talked with Mickey Finn from Jet Boy. They were on.
Oh yeah,
but they right as both of their albums came out, there was this big label changeover.
Yeah,
that's a common story.
Yep, exactly. You can put all your hard-earned work into like that first debut album, like the Headpins out of Vancouver, BC. Yeah. My God, what an incredible album.
Yeah.
We used to listen out in the dressing room just to get us jacked up to go on stage, you know, because it was so good.
Yeah.
And so it's like that debut album that they did. I'm going, my God.
Those guys are legends because of that album.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, the thing is they should have been huge, you know, great players, all of them, great production, great songwriting, excellent singing. So you just go, man, what happened, you know?
I saw the documentary of, now I can't remember her name, but the singer of the Headpins, the girl singer anyway. It was a fascinating story.
Yeah, I'd love to see that actually. So I'll have to Google that.
Yeah. I'll try to remember it. Maybe I can send you a link.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
So change it. If you haven't listened to That's the Stuff, go listen to the song Changing Hands and tell me in the comments if that's not a surefire hit anyway.
Yeah. A lot of people say that about a lot of our songs, you know, on the second and third albums. They're going, why wasn't this, you know, a big hit, you know? And I'm just going, well, it's not us. We were in there, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, just really, really working at it hard, trying to make it sound the best we possibly could. And, you know, but when it's out of control, out of your control, then it's up to the record company, and they.
Right.
And we got all the tours, you know, that were basically on our own. We got those tours on our own.
Okay.
That wasn't the help from RCA. We got those people we knew and everything. So.
Right. And That's the Stuff. You got you went out with Bryan Adams, Dio, Motley Crue. I mean,
it was and Heart.
And Heart.
Yeah. And then Motley Crue, and that was 1986.
I mean, those are some of the biggest tours around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were at that time. They were the biggest tours out there. Yeah. Because you know, but it was like one of those things where it was such a whirlwind, you know. And then we're flying back to LA to record all this stuff, and then flying right back out and going on the tour again. So there was like a good 6-year period where we were constantly busy.
Yeah.
You know, but then the third album, of course, Loud and Clear. And that's actually my favorite Autograph album because at that time we were really polished. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where we played so much together and we'd written so much together, and we were just a well-oiled machine at that point. We couldn't do anything wrong. And that was a really good place to be. It felt really positive, you know.
And Andy Johns produced that.
Andy Johns produced it. It was great being in the studio with him.
Yeah.
You know?
I was gonna. You mentioned kind of deciding that you were done with the party scene was after the
Motley Crue. Yeah, that was.
Was it watching Motley Crue party that made you go, you know what, I got to get away from this? Or
it was. There was so much of everything all the time, and at the end of the tour, felt just terrible, and I knew my playing wasn't up to par, and that was one of the main things. So I'm just going, I look terrible, I feel terrible, and my playing's not where it should be. Right. And so I straightened up and started working out a lot and playing, practicing more and everything, and it changed. It completely changed around. That was the best I think I ever sounded in my whole career, was during that time after Motley Crue. Yeah.
On Loud and Clear, you got Ozzy Osbourne, Vince Neil to be in the video, and that's a big sport.
Well, we've done the Ozzy Osbourne Headbangers Ball. We were co-hosts with him, and it was so fun. He had just gotten out of rehab, and that's when he had the spiky hair.
That's right.
And Sharon just picked him up out of rehab, and she brought him down to the MTV studios in New York. And so we're there, waiting, and Ozzy's going to start off, with his first little spill on the reading the teleprompter. And he goes, and he just, fuck it, roll it again, And, so, and he says, this is Ozzy, fuck it. Shannon, go get me a 6-pack. So he tried it about, another 6 or 8 times, and he just could not get through the first sentence. So said, Shannon, go get me a 6-pack. And so she did. She took the elevator down, got him a 6-pack. He popped one after the next, and he probably drank the whole thing in about 20 minutes, And so says, okay, roll it. And first take is like, hello, this is Ozzy Osbourne. I'm here with my mate's autograph. He went through the whole thing perfectly.
Right.
And so we asked him, after we did that, we said, hey, you want to come down? And, this is after the Motley Crue tour too. And so we asked Ozzy and we asked Vince to come down. They both gladly, they wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah. And then you ended up with She Never Looked That Good on Me, or that never.
Yeah, She Never Looked That Good for Me. Being in the movie Like Father, Like Son. And that was us, playing on there. So, so it was. Yeah, and so it was weird that being up on stage playing live like that, and God, it turned out really good too. So
that's a great. I mean, I loved that movie when I was a kid.
I did too. Yeah, well, you can't go wrong. Dudley Moore, come on.
And Kirk Cameron was huge at that time.
Oh God, yeah. Kirk was really cool too. Yeah. So,
was it? So is around the Loud and Clear tour? Is it? I think Steve Isham kind of started having some problems with addiction because he ended up out of the band, right?
Yeah, that was probably around 1980. It was 88.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was after that. But we were at that time we were doing demos for Epic Records. Okay. We were going to sign a 3-album deal with them, but then the whole grunge thing happened, so that blew that completely apart. Just like with a lot of bands, you don't have any more airplay; it's all grunge. So that's it. We're done. And so that some of those demos that's also on the FNA Records too. So, but anyway, and in fact, they ended up being on the Missing Pieces album.
The Missing Pieces. I think it came out in '97.
Yeah, 97 it was.
It's supposed to be the fourth album. You guys didn't end up signing with Epic. Grunge.
But those were all demos too.
Yes.
That's when we were going to be signing with Epic. But then we had these songs, which never got released. And so that became Missing Pieces, actually. So, but it was a difficult time during then because, Steve, I'd known Steve since Seattle, probably 1975.
Yeah.
And he was in a band called Bighorn. They were Seattle's biggest band at that time. And then here I am, and after I graduated from the Guitar Institute of Technology, that was 1979. And here I'm moving into an apartment in Glendale, California, and he's moving out of it. And I'm going, no way. Out of a city, at that time it was 16 million people, and we go, no way, out of 16 million people. Yeah. And I'm moving into an apartment that you're moving out of. Yeah. That's really bizarre. The odds of that. Yeah. It's one in 16 million.
Yeah.
I mean, really. So that's pretty heavy. And then, he's such a great guy. God, it's just, cocaine got the best of him, and that's so unfortunate. So, same thing with Keni. Keni got really heavy into it, and got heavy into meth and heroin and stuff. And so it was just really sad, and I talked a little bit about that in the book too, about, that, God, it's just.
Did you notice it was a problem during the 80s when you guys were on the road? I mean, were you like, uh-oh, like.
Yeah, I mean, the whole party thing was over the top, but, after I went straight, things seemed to be calming down a little bit, but except for Keni and Steve Isham, basically, I mean, the rest of us were all kind of maintaining a pretty straight face. So, but the thing is, it's one of those things that I would teach, when I would do clinics. I did 325 clinics in 20 different countries. Yeah. And I would always say the whole thing about drugs is, man, just stay the hell away, because it does no good for you in your life whatsoever. Yeah. You just stay the hell away from it. If you're going to do anything, maybe a little bit of pot or something, but stay away from all the other stuff. It's no good.
When you guys were recording the demos, what would become missing pieces? At what point do you say, you know what, this is not going anywhere, Autograph is over?
December of 1989. It was literally the end of the 80s. Yeah. It was right at that time. It was December 1989. Yeah, and I remember that because I would think about that. Like this is the end of us. It's really heavy. I went and put my guitar in the car from rehearsal, and I just felt really sad about it. Like this is it. What am I going to do now? Of course, I ended up doing all these clinics and everything, and eventually owned a music school and all that. So, which was really good, but it wasn't the same.
Did you guys have like a big conversation, or did you just kind of fade
away?
It
was just kind of, we all knew it. Okay. What I did was I could just feel that whole oomph that we had before, the excitement and everything, it was gone. We were just in rehearsal, and we already kind of knew the Epic record deal had fizzled out, and that there was no chance of getting any radio play anyway. It just would have bombed, because that's just the way it was. It was like, you're done. It's the end of the 80s. That's it. The 90s are here now, and it's grunge, period. So that's the way it was. And so being from Seattle, I'm going, guys, what are you doing? Because that all came from Seattle, right? And so anyway, but I thought, okay, well, this is the way it is. This is the way it has to be. And it was very sad because none of us wanted that to happen,
And it changed like that, is what it felt like.
It was almost instantaneous, where it just came in. And I think that, from a perspective of me thinking about, it was becoming, the 80s stuff was becoming so homogenized. It was so commercialized. Yes. And some of it just made me sick to my stomach. I'm going, guys, what are you doing? I don't want to mention any bands, but it was just way over the top. And I'm just going, this isn't rock and roll anymore. It's just, it's the corporate, yes, it's the corporate greed that has taken over. They want all these ballads and everything. They just want instant money. And it wasn't, I could tell the writers just weren't even feeling it. There just wasn't that emotion, that hunger was gone. And so I thought it needed a change anyway. And, all the lyrics and everything about being, the videos and stuff of getting out of a limo with the groupies and all that kind of stuff, that didn't pertain to, Joe Schmo in Iowa. You know what I mean? They had nothing to do with that world at all. So grunge came in and went, here's your world. Yeah. Basically, this is really it. And it was much more serious. Some of it was a bit depressing, to be honest. Yeah. A lot of it was, had drug influence in there and addiction issues and stuff like that. Well, that's what they were coming from, obviously, but I understood the change. It needed something drastic. It needed to get back to that the rawness, I mean, it's unfortunately, put all these other bands, from the 80s out of work, at least for a time anyway. But that's what happened.
You went on. You were going to record a solo album, which
I did.
Network 23.
Right. That's
tell
one I did. I pretty much did all of that on my own. I wrote all the material, and most of the lyrics. And then I did all the drum parts, electronically.
Yeah.
And then Chris Frazier, who's, has played with Whitesnake. I think he's been with like Foreigner for like 20 years now. But he's played, played with Steve Vai and everything. I got him to come in and do the drum parts. And then there was a couple other ones that I wanted to do to finish up the album. I wanted, a different drummer to come in and play on a couple other tracks. And that was Mike Mangini, who's Dream Theater and Steve Vai, and amazing drummer too. Both of them just amazing drummers. And so they finished up their tracks, and then I got this guy Scott Gilman, because I had to fire the singer that I had. He was way over the top with drinking and everything, and I just went, I can't do this, And so anyway, so I got this guy Scott Gilman, who's from the city of Boston, and it was Mike Mangini, actually, the drummer, that recommended him. And when I heard him, I just, oh my God, this guy's really good. He can sing anything, and he's a great saxophone player. He's playing with Jeff Goldblum, saxophone with Jeff Goldblum now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and he's doing a lot of studio work out in LA. So he's keeping really busy. He's doing great. So,
so you tried to find a label for Network 23.
Well, I did have a label.
Okay.
And yeah,
that's right.
So,
what happened with it?
Oh, it's the Sopper Records. They were out of Ohio. They went bankrupt. And so basically I had to, get my master tapes out of there and went back to LA and recorded some more. And then I went to Florida and recorded some more.
Yes.
So that was kind of all over the map with that album. But I'm really happy with the way it came out. It needs to be remastered because we only had like 1 day to master it. And so it needs to go back. I need to go back in and remaster it and re-release it. So
I listened to it on, I'll be honest, I didn't know about it. I read about it. I go listen to it on YouTube. I'm like, wow, it is phenomenal.
Thank you for that.
Lynch, Network 23. I would just not bring it up if I didn't think about it. I'd be like, so I was so impressed. Was it ever released on CD or did you just release it on?
Yeah, I have the CD of it, but the thing is I, at that time, because we're talking about 1995. Yeah. Okay, grunge is in full swing.
Yeah.
I got Marco Babineau, who used to work with Geffen. I was in Florida at the time. I got him to shop it for me in LA. And so whenever they heard the name Steve Lynch, they went, goes right in the garbage. Because any person that has anything to do with the 80s, no, we're out. We're out completely. And he took it to like every major label, and even some secondary ones. And they just said, no, some independent labels. And so I basically just kind of hung it up, but I'm not letting it go. I'm going to remaster and re-release it, So
I don't know if that's something and off topic, but I don't know if that's something that FNA would do, but I hope it gets a release.
Possibly. Yeah.
People should.
But it's one of those things where I'm also right in the middle of, doing so many different things like finishing up this whole Sony deal so that our songs can stream and everything. And then of course the FNA Records, I want to promote that and my book. And it's
got a lot going on.
Well, yeah. And then I got they asked for my guitar in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was just amazed by that. So that was all a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So
and I'm gonna get to that. In 2006, you opened up a music school, Federal Way School of Music. What leads to
that? Well, basically, I had been teaching at another place for 10 years before that.
Okay.
And so that was great. But then in 2006, they decided to close their doors, and so I brought all the students for all the teachers, and it took me 10 days to get to find the property, get in all the walls, all the air conditioning vent, all the electrical vents, or all the electrical outlets and everything. And I did the whole thing and had everything set up for every teacher, the pianos in there and everything in 10 days time. And so all their students were just able to come back and they didn't even miss a day. You know, because we had that last week to teach at the other place, and then the next weekend they're closing down. And so I opened the school up, and everybody was ready to go. You know, we just moved everything in, and the students didn't miss one day. So it was like I was quite busy during that week, believe me, because I had to find the building and everything.
Expensive process. I mean, not that you need to go, but I mean, like, wow, you did that in 10 days, found this place anyway.
Yeah. And it was just a great facility. It worked out really well. Had a nice big waiting room, you know, for when you walk in and everything. And I had 12 teachers there, so it worked out very well.
Like, how long did you stay involved with that, or
another 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So
all right.
Basically.
And where was that, in Seattle, or where was that at?
Yeah, it's just south of Seattle.
Okay.
Federal Way is kind of like in between Seattle and Tacoma.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that happens in 2006. In 2008, Steve Isham dies of cancer.
Yes, right.
Do you remember, like, had you been in touch with him or what?
No, not really. He was kind of off the radar.
Okay.
I didn't know how to get in touch with him or anything. I don't even know if he had a cell phone at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, he was unfortunately in a pretty bad space in his life, and you know, so it was just one of those things where if people don't want help, then you can't really help them. You know?
Right.
So,
but I think it's around here in the book. You talk about recording this Lynch Licks video, and you play guitar for like 25 hours in 2 days. And
well, it was 25 hours with both days combined. Yeah, with Saturday and Sunday. So,
and that brought some like physical ramifications, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it really messed up both my arms. Actually, I had a hard time even carrying my guitars out of the studio, and then when I was driving home from the studio down to my house, my hands were cramping up on the steering wheel, and I'm going, no. I mean, I'm on the freeway, you know. And so I got over to the side, and I had to sit there on the side with my flashers on for like a half hour before I started to get feeling back, you know. And I thought, you know, I've already been through a couple of hand surgeries already for carpal tunnel, you know, and so I thought this is going to be a real problem. So I did make it home, and I was just barely able to get into my place. And then I called up to go to Dr. Sandborg, my hand specialist. And he said, yeah, you really screwed up. You really screwed up. He says, you might not be playing again. And so he said, because of this, if you keep this up, then, you know, it's just going to cause more problems, you know. And so I said, yeah, well, this is just a one-time thing. I just wanted to record all this, you know. And so I did it. And then again, when I was out playing live, you know, I had a different hand doctor down here in Florida. When I went to him and I was explaining the problems, like my hands were cramping up on stage really bad and everything. And, you know, I'd had trouble with my hands since 1978 when I went to the Guitar Institute. And so, you know, at that point, I thought, you know, I can't do this. I had to take some time off from playing live because, you know, my doctor said, you're not even going to be able to hold a cup of coffee if you keep doing this.
Right.
You know, I mean, and that really scared me. I mean, to the point where I just lose the use of my hands.
Right.
You know, he said, it's that bad. Right. I said, yeah, it's like, you're going to have arthritis. And so that was that. And, you know, I look at it, I may play live again. I'm not sure yet. You know what I mean? Because my hands are still cramping up when I'm just doing, you know, mundane things if I'm writing something down, you know, but I miss it so much. I miss going out there and playing, you know. But even if I'm not going to do that, I can still record, because I can record for just a little bit each day, and it doesn't bother me, you know.
Right.
So
Was it? Did you have to do any kind of surgery, or was there any kind of therapy,
Yeah,
or was it?
yeah, there was both actually.
Okay.
The first thing, I broke my wrist, and I broke it in two places, and that was in 1998. That was when I was living in Seattle, and so anyway, when they put the cast on, I thought everything was good, and it was all gonna it was just an accident, in-home accident, right? And so I thought it was all going to be okay. And when they took the cast off, my wrist was up here and my hand was down here, so the bones weren't even connecting, just
Wow.
barely. Yeah, and so I looked at it, I almost passed out, because I just thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
And doctor said, oh yeah, that's bad. He says you're going to have it rebroken.
Yeah.
And so they did. They put a pin in here, a plate, I mean, and then I had pins in my hands here and here to keep it so that it stayed on track. And so I wasn't able to use my right hand at all for a year.
Okay.
It was just like, it was that bad. And so I had to learn to write while I was teaching. I had to learn to write with my left hand. Okay. And then, with the therapy and everything, I had to do all this putty, working with the putty and everything, but I could not lift even a glass of water. So I knew that feeling already of not being able to hold anything, and it's just like freaked me out. And so my left arm was like this, and my right hand was like that. No, but really, when I got it all out of traction and everything, I looked at my hand and it was only about, the wrist was just really tiny. And so I had to build that back up, and then I had to wait so I could start exercising again and all that. But then, I had to go in and I had to do carpal tunnel on each hand again because I had to do it again. I went too far.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Do you feel like you said, you can play for little bits, you can record, but you don't like I'm sure the amount of time you can practice and play is probably
right. It's very limited, and the thing about playing live too is the hand angle when you're standing up. Yeah. That's what really kills me. I can go out and play 3 songs and my hand starts going numb. Okay. And there's shooting pain going up my forearm. So
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So it's like one of those things,
Yeah.
But I got a good, 50 plus years out of it, but I figure it's not over yet because I still have so much to record.
Yeah.
But, I kind of liken it to this, and that's when the Beatles stopped touring after that. They had this plethora of incredible songs because they were just going into the studio all the time. Right. And we wouldn't have had those songs if they were out touring.
Yeah.
And so I kind of look at it like that, like I'll get to that point where everything's kind of settled in, and with my fiance living in another place, I'm not sure which place we're going to move to yet, but it's someplace in Florida. But then I'll be able to start thinking about that again. Right now, there's so much chaos happening, so it's difficult to plan right now. But I'm getting that itch to really, because I'm hearing songs in my head all the time, and I've always wanted to do kind of like my favorite album of all time is Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay.
The first time I heard that, so I don't think like I loved Led Zeppelin, I loved Hendrix, and I loved Genesis and all that when I was growing up. It was all just, I just loved it all. Emerson, Lake and Palmer and stuff. But it was more the British bands. Yeah. You know what I mean? That I got hit hard with that whole British feeling, And so I've always wanted to do an album that was just experimental, like Dark Side of the Moon, because I don't want to just write in a hit radio format. In fact, I could care less about that anymore. I want to just experiment, create new sounds. There may be a lot of things that I do that don't even sound like guitar at all. Yeah. So. And
who knows what hit radio is even at this point?
Oh God. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. In 2011, you meet Randy at NAMM.
Yep.
And that's where the idea to maybe reunite happens. Can you what happened with that meeting that led you guys to go, maybe we should start this again?
Well, this was at NAMM. So, when Randy and I, we met and had breakfast together first, and then we went into the show itself, and there were so many people coming up to us, saying, "Oh my God, Randy, Steve, this is so cool," and everybody wanted pictures and autographs and everything. And so we went, wow, we didn't think anybody was going to recognize us, right? Because it had been since 1989, and here it is 2011. So we thought nobody's going to know who we are, but we were quite pleasantly surprised, and then, but we both had businesses. Like he had that leather business and I had my music school. And so, kind of go back to doing that. And then, Keni, the drummer, calls us up and he wanted to do it, but then that turned out to be a problem because of the drug issue there too, and so, the first rehearsal, I could tell there was something definitely off. The second rehearsal, that was completely it. I mean, he couldn't remember drum parts or anything, and he didn't even own a drum kit at that point. I mean, he was in pretty dire straits. And so, then on the third rehearsal, I was flying down from Seattle at this time, I'm paying for my airfare, for my hotel, for transportation. And so the third time he didn't even show up. And I just went, okay, well, I'm done. That's it for that. And then, but we got, we got a singer, we got a drummer, and we went out for, well, it was me for another 6 years, and that's when my carpet tunnel really started to act up again, and that was that. So
was Steve, I'm assuming you approached, obviously Steve wasn't, but
Steve was doing well. He said, I don't think my voice would do it going out there and singing that hard, because he was he sang really hard, and so, and he said, but the main thing is I'm so busy writing songs for all these movies and TV things. He wrote the title song for the theme song for Seventh Heaven.
That's right.
Yeah. And so he was really busy doing that and being able to spend time with his wife without going off on tour again. You know what I mean? And, but he says, I wish you guys well, go out and have fun.
Sure. So, in 2014, you guys finally played the first show. You and Randy are the original members, like 30 years after the first Autograph gig. Like, what was that like?
It was it was really cool because so many people remembered Randy and I, and it was like I just had so much fun playing with Randy.
Yeah.
I mean, he hadn't changed at all. He was still running around the stage like he always had been, and it was really cool. It was a good experience there until the carpet tunnel, played a role. And
you guys did put out a new album in 2017. Get Off Your Ass. What was your? I think you've kind of expressed maybe you weren't big on that. Like what was your feeling about that album?
It just, after playing with the original Autograph and like I said, that Loud and Clear album we were such a well-oiled machine at that time, and here it is all those years later that I just felt that it just wasn't nearly up to par as anything that the original Autograph did. Right. And no offense to anybody else, but it's just the reality of it. You know what I mean? So. Yep. So that's that. And then Randy passed away in 2022. So
you remember Steve died in 2017 and he was murdered.
Yeah, Keni, you mean?
Or Keni, my bad.
Yeah.
Keni was murdered in 2017. Like when do you remember?
I heard it was I have this friend on Facebook who was in contact with him up to the point of when it happened, and he was asking this guy for money because he said, man, I got these guys after me, and he was mumbling on. Keni was always so high though. He was on meth and heroin. You don't know what to believe, and so who knows what happened, but he was talking about the Mexican drug cartel or something, or going, oh my God, and he was living out there in Palm Desert, actually Joshua Tree Park, in a little shack out there in the desert, and so, he didn't have a car, didn't have a driver's license. Yeah. So, it's just really unfortunate because these guys, we're such good friends, and Randy and I, we were like roommates the whole time when the original Autograph was together. We were roommates for 6 years, and so while on tour, that is, and so we just got along great. We were like best buds, so it was really, really sad to hear about his passing. And he died of a heart attack.
And that was in 2022, Randy.
Yeah, it was May of 2022, April 26th of May of 2022. Yeah.
You had left in 2019 because of the carpal. Randy continued on with Autograph.
But you see, it wasn't. They didn't play that many shows because COVID, and that's when I started writing the book, because I was pretty much confined to home. I couldn't teach or do anything, right?
Yeah.
So because I was teaching down here in Florida too, but I couldn't go in anymore because there was no students, there was no contact with anybody. So I decided, okay, now it's time to write the book. And over the next 2 years, I was pretty much done with it by the time COVID ended, right? But then I had to update a lot of stuff because more stuff kept happening. All good stuff, most of it's good anyway. But and that's just the way it was, and so and I had to trim it down a little bit. I mean, I had to take off some stories in there because they said, my God, this is going to be a 400-page book, because that still wasn't all the stories that I had. I was just picking my favorite ones, and then I had to edit a lot of it down because when I started, what happened was, out of all these stories I'm telling friends and fans and everything and family all about these different adventures I'd had all around the world and stuff. And they said, God, you've got to write a book. And so I kept on hearing this for years and years. So what I started to do is I started writing down single sentence reminders, and I had 200 of them. And I said, oh my God, now I got to write this in chronological format and put the whole thing together to make it sound interesting. And so I think I succeeded at that. And so this is just what happened. So, and then, like I said, I had to do some updates because things were still happening. So here you have it. So
and the book is phenomenal. I want to ask about this because the lawsuit was all been taken care of, but
yes, it is. Yeah. What happened was it's public knowledge, but they sued me for the name.
Yep.
But it's basically my name, and the singer Steve Plunkett, also gave it to me, and so I had the name outright, and so I had to countersue, and it worked out. It worked out great.
In what world do these guys who were never in the original Autograph think that they have the right to the name after Randy dies, and you? I don't even get how it got that far.
It's you got me. I mean, that's the question of the century right there.
Right?
Yeah, because I didn't know about what was happening, why they were thinking that, but I just kind of looked at it like, well, this is something that I'm just going to have to go through. But obviously, I'm not going to give up the Autograph name. I mean, look, we worked really hard to get our reputation going and everything. And it was always an agreement. And it was in our partnership agreement with the original Autograph that there cannot be, and that was still withholding today, that there cannot be a band called Autograph with no original members. Randy was the last one. When he passed away, I said, that's it. That is it. And Steve Plunkett totally agreed. He said, no, that's the way our partnership agreement is and everything, And even by common law is when you have something in commerce where you're selling. And obviously, I'm still, still in movies, still in TV things, still all over the radio and video games and everything. So the name is still alive and the songs are. So it's in commerce and it has been since 1984. Yeah. You see what I mean? So that's called common law.
Okay. So everything, the legal stuff is settled.
Yep.
Name is now rightfully back with you. Those guys cannot do anything as Autograph.
No. They can, not as autograph. They can have autograph and then a separate name with it, but they can't use the logo or anything like that or the trademark. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
why are the first 3 autograph albums not on streaming?
that is Sony. So you've always had to think of these record companies. First it was RCA. Then it was Sasapa for me when I did the solo album that went bankrupt. And so all you guitar players or musicians out there that are listening to this, you're probably going to go through these things. You know what I mean? So do it while you're young, while you can handle it. But anyway, so that was Sony that has not had them up. Now all of that's reversing. So the albums will be available and all the songs you'll be able to stream again. And we're selling that up like probably within the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it was just a few years ago that suddenly it started being pulled off.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of things going on with Sony and a lot of different big record labels out there where they weren't paying for streaming and all these different things were going on. So the artists were getting very frustrated, and the artists were actually winning lawsuits because they found that, hey, these guys do deserve the money that wrote these songs, and they're still getting played. And so they're restructuring everything about the streaming because, like, for instance, when Turn Up the Radio gets played, it's like 0.0071 of a penny. Okay. So basically, God, who was it? They said that you have to have 2 million plays to get $4,000. I mean, that's just like unheard of. So that's all being, and there's probably going to have to be back money paid to these bands for all the revenue that they lost out on, So it's one of those things where, we're having a lot of, good relationships. We have a good relationship with Sony and everything, so everything's going smooth, But they're willing to work with it, with us, to get everything finalized. It's basically me. I'm handling, all the legal, so. Well,
I just know fans, we want that music to be available because.
And you shall have it.
With podcasts and things like this, hopefully we spread the word out there and we want the artists, you guys, to get the benefit, not suit up in an office.
Right, exactly. So I'll be glad to come back on if you want to promote it.
Absolutely. And so anyway, okay, it's good to hear that that's coming up, Steve. And I think the natural question to ask, because Steve is releasing an album full of re-recorded autograph songs, and I was like, well, maybe he's trying to fill the void of there not being autograph on streaming, and then he gets his. What do you think about the new Steve Plunkett album coming out?
Well, I haven't really listened to a lot of it, but it sounded to me like it was a lot of AI. It's like, okay, on Turn Up the Radio, the solo that I did was in a Mixolydian mode. Okay. But the AI or whoever played along with it, they just played out a major pentatonic, so it sounded real country. Yeah. You see, but I knew how to work with mode, so it didn't sound like that, And so, and then I heard another song too, where it had that same kind of thing, where it was going off into a whole different sound. It wasn't like that, but he had to release that as Steve Plunkett.
Yes.
He wasn't able to release it because I own the name, trademark, and logo. So, now I have the FNA thing, with the 2 albums and demos and everything. So yeah.
I was surprised because Steve had, not done anything autograph related, and then to hear all of a sudden it was on Blabbermouth, Steve Plunkett, new version, Turn Up the Radio. You're like, wow, how did that come up? Anyway, okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't listened to the whole thing, so I don't know what it all sounds like. Some people really like it, so I don't know. But it feels weird listening to something that I recorded on the original, and then not to hear me or any of the other band members like Randy. I miss his bass playing, and I miss Kenny's drumming and the keyboards that Steve Isham created. So to me, it doesn't sound true.
No.
If that sounds.
I don't want to bag on it because I love Steve's voice, but
yeah,
when the guitars are supposed to come in and
it's something completely different. Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. Like I don't know if he used AI, but that's to me what it sounded like. Because I know how AI basically sounds. It's pretty generic.
Yeah.
I
mean, his voice.
But I wish him well with it. And
his voice sounds fine. It just not hearing your guitar.
And he put out a solo album too, and his second solo album.
Yeah.
And that's what I plan to do in the future as well. So
let's get into that. So what? And you've talked about your desire to explore new forms of
yes, absolutely.
What?
I'll probably call the album like I've been like I'm into this thing where you can listen to how different planets actually sound. Okay. And I remember when I listened to, because they can actually record the sound that planet is emitting, and the blueness of Neptune, it's got a very particular sound to it, and it sounds lonely, and it's kind of out there all by itself, and I thought Blue Neptune, that's pretty cool, and so that's why I wanted to call the project, okay. So. And so it'll just be experimentations on my end, and so I'll start that next year. I'll start getting into that, So
is that do you think just instrumental or?
Oh no, there'll be vocals on it. To be honest with you, even though I'm a guitar player, I kind of get bored with instrumental albums.
Sure.
I mean, there's some that I really enjoyed, like Jeff Beck, Blow by Blow. I completely loved. I loved everything that Jeff Beck did. Even when he was done working with any singers anymore. He was, but every solo album that he put out, I was mesmerized by it. So,
Okay, so you're thinking about starting this new solo stuff next year?
Yeah.
And we've talked about the hand issues.
Yeah.
And I just think, would you ever foresee doing something with Autograph, either recording wise or live in the future?
Yeah, I do, but it obviously now it would only be myself.
Yep.
And so that would be something where I'd have to think about that. And I'm going to really work on, when I get really heavily into practice again, I'm going to really work on playing with the super light touch, because I've always been such a really aggressive player.
Yeah.
I mean, I pick those notes really, really hard, and so that's been my problem. Probably most of it is that with both hands, with the hammer on stuff, I don't, tapping sounds like it's like tap dancing. No, it's not that. I'm batting the shit out of those strings. You know what I mean? Because you have to make your right hand as loud as the picking. You know what I mean? With just your left hand. So you have to really make up for that. So
right.
It's a lot of work, but
and one of the last things I wanted to, in 2024, you were invited to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I was just amazed by that, but they wanted to, they're going to start doing this. Well, they already have started doing the 80s players, and I was one of the early ones to be asked about that, and so.
So what did that all involve? Was there some exhibit that you guys and you?
It's my guitar and Randy's bass in there, and then a little bio about the band and stuff. And so, but they're just doing these different things from all the 80s bands, and so they're going to have a whole section on that.
Okay.
Because most everything that they have in there, it goes all the way back to the 50s, and the 60s and the 70s. Even though I think it started in 1993 or something like that, when they first built the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It still goes back a long ways. So, but there's so many bands from the 80s and even into the 90s and stuff, where people want to see the more current ones, and so that's what's happening.
It always, but it always felt like 80s rock bands Never accepted by the critics and by the mainstream, but the fans loved it.
Right. And I think that pressure from the fans have really made a lot of these institutions pay a lot more attention to them.
Yep.
And because they're going, why aren't they in this? You know, why aren't they inducted into this or whatever? So,
and then I think at that, when you were at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and not to get personal, but didn't you propose to your fiance there?
Yes, I did. Right. Yeah.
Right.
And so that was a very memorable moment. I thought, well, how can it get better than this right here, right now? So,
right. So when is that going to happen?
Probably next year, because like I said, she's still up in New Jersey. I just flew home yesterday.
Okay.
So I'm still a little bit burned out from that. Sure. But I flew back home because I had to take care of some stuff here in Florida. Sure. And so we're looking for places down here. She's got her place on the market up there. And so that's what's happening. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, we're looking at it sometime next year. You know.
Okay. All right.
We've been together 4.5 years already, so
awesome.
No big push on it.
The 2 new CDs, 10, Send Her to Me on FNA Records at FNARecords.net. And I am wearing the autograph shirt.
I know, I saw that. Very cool.
I got the bag with
man.
Steve Lynch.
You got everything.
I actually did, and I'll send it to you. I did an unboxing video of this bag.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Showing everything. And right. I love these. I'm not just kissing your ass. I always thought Autograph was one of the most pop metal radio friendly. I'm just like shocked that not every album didn't go platinum. So I highly encourage, especially when it comes back on streaming, everybody to go revisit the old Autograph albums.
Yes.
But also go to FNARecords.net.
You bet. Yeah.
Probably
check these out because I think everybody will like them. You have that one upside down, but that's no big deal.
I had it.
Yeah.
Here, get it right. There you go. And then Confessions of a Rock Guitarist. I finished that thing in a day. That's great. And I used to be an avid reader in the last few years with the phones and the internet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've become, and so I was not, and I was just sucked in. It was over, and I was like, I wanted the 400-page book, Steve. To be honest, I didn't want to.
A lot of people say that. Surprisingly enough, a lot of people. So we would have liked to even had a longer version of it. So
I encourage. I will put the link to.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Book. I will put the link to FNA. And I know you have a Facebook. Where else are you at on social media that people can follow what's happening with you?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I'm in LinkedIn. And then we have the Autograph site, which has 36,000 followers on that. And so that's where we're at. You know, I have a Twitter one, or now X, but I never use that one anyway.
Okay. I will put your socials and everything in the description.
Yeah.
Of this. And is there anything that I missed? Anything that you're like, hey, I'd really like to let people know about this before we wrap it up?
Just to be expecting more music from me. Yeah. As of next year. Just to be expecting it, because I haven't gone anywhere, believe me. Okay. I can't go without playing guitar. And so that's just the way it is.
When that happens, you are absolutely invited back on to discuss anything that you have coming up. It is just to read your book and now get to sit and talk to you for close to an hour and 45 minutes. It has just been a blast hearing your stories. Steve Lynch.
Well, it's been that long?
Yeah.
I'm a blabbermouth, aren't I?
Time flies when you're having fun. No, it's been awesome. Yeah. So thank you so much for making the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Anthony. And we'll do it again.